What's good, duelists? We have another metagame breakdown. This is number one. Even though it's number two, it is called number one, which is cool, but let's get into it. So we have 46 Sinful Spoil Snake Eye Fire King taking over this OCG breakdown. We also have Snake Eye coming in second when it was kind of doing really well before. It was like in first. And to me, I think Snake Eye is like one of the best decks going into post Phantom Nightmare. Definitely way better than Voiceless Voice. So I think for TCG, it might be even with Fire King and Snake Eye, and then Voiceless Voice will be third, maybe even fourth, because some of our decks are still pretty powerful, like Rescue Ace, for example, could definitely take that fourth spot. Even Despia, I think, is going to be insane going into next format. It just gets a lot better just because of like how the meta shifts. But yeah, I think Voiceless Voice will probably be a good fifth slot, maybe even Labyrinth or Flu, because Flu has been insane in the OCG because they do have Shifter, and it's just such a powerful card. Along with Maxi, it's like 5 floodgates, so it's usually 1 out of 33, or 33% chance 1 out of every 3 games you're opening Dimension Shifter. Now you have Maxi also added to that, so it's like, what, 1 out of 66 games you're opening a broken card. Obviously, there's way more outs to Maxi. You have Ash, you have Gamma, you have Called By, you have Crossout Designator. Some of those can hit Shifter too, but you get my point. And then let's get into it. So we're going to have our first deck, Fire King, taking the crown in this with like 31%, 101 participants. We don't actually see how many rounds they played or their record, I don't believe, but we do see their list, so let's get into it. They are only playing one Garunix in the OCG, which kind of seems scary because you think like, what if I just play one DD Crow, then I out that completely? And then this is kind of like why it's confusing with Soul Release too, but you know, Soul Release has Promethean Princess as well, and the Obama Whale, and the Garunix. And then a lot of time people actually just end on the Salamangreat Heat Phoenix over the Obama Whale, so it could hit that as well. I think the amount of value you get game one out of the Garunix, though, like justifies only playing one. It is kind of like a brickier card. It is the go-to search off Fire King Island, so it does make sense. And realistically, how many people are going to be maining Crow? Maybe more in the future, just because of how well Fire King has done. But it's like your Fire King Garunix still destroyed a card. Then we have the 3 Kirin, 1 Arvada. I like 1 Arvada. I like 1 Ponix. It's like, you know, just keep all of these cards to the minimum because we're running the Snake Eye engine, which is kind of just as powerful as our Fire King engine. So definitely think it makes a lot of sense. 2 Populous. I think Populous is a good 2 of. I do think you should be running Orc or Oak. I forget. It is Orc in your deck. Orc is just so powerful, especially in the pure Snake Eye build. But even in this, it does come up. It's just like it's a better Ash in a way, but it's not a starter. So that's why you play Ash over it. But special summoning a monster that's banished during the grave is like pretty broken, especially when you add Jet Synchron to the equation in these pure Snake Eye decks. But in Fire King, it still does a lot. It's also another effect to just get to your Flame Bridge if, say, your Snake Eye's Ash actually gets ashed. The second effect, now you can use the Orc. And then we have 3 Ash Blossom. Kind of hard to relate this to the TCG because, you know, maybe Ash isn't as good going into next format. You could still hit the second effect of Ash, but when you're picking and choosing, do I hit the first or second effect off Ash? Ash Blossom seems to get worse. I'm talking about Snake Eyes Ash versus regular Ash Blossom. It seems to get worse because you have to pick and choose which effect you're going to use. And then if they're playing that Orc, they can still get to their Flame Bridge Dragon, so you're not really stopping anything. But in the OCG, Ash Blossom is pretty much mandatory card along with your 3 Maxis. It's like a 6 of mandatory engine, which definitely confuses things. Also, we have the 1 Nibiru for the designator. Nibiru doesn't seem as powerful as I once thought because before I just thought like people are playing into Nibiru like so easy with Fire Kings and pure Snake Eye and everything else. But there's actually a lot of ways to play around Nibiru. Just leaving that Flame Bridge Dragon out can definitely make Nibiru not be as impactful as you would think. And then I think Fire Kings are also doing just way better in the OCG because, you know, they could go chain Kirin to anything on Max E. So say I just like activate Populous effects, a special summon, they go chain Max E, I go chain Kirin, pop it, Special Summon Kieran, they don't draw off Max C because the chain resolves that way. We're going in depth for sure in this video. Fire King Island, we're running 2 with only 1 continuous spell. Pretty standard for post Phantom Nightmare, even though it contradicts like our current format in the TCG, but just like if you haven't looked at the past OCG list, they were doing the same thing as us, running 5 of these cards before they had the Populace. And then we have one of the quick play. Definitely another card that is kind of dependent on Max C. You might want to run Circle of the Fire Kings over in the TCG just because this card is a go-to if you do get Max C'd. Why would you search, the island to further special summon? You could just pass on this with a set, and it's just like still an interrupt through Max C. 3 wanted, obvious. 1 original Sinful Spoils, obvious. Could run even 2 to 3. We just saw, I was just looking at this dude's TG, this broken deck, running 3 of the original Sinful Spoils, so definitely possible to run more of that card. 3 Bonfire, this card's broken just because Populace is so insane, so much value. And then we have 2 Called By, 1 Designator, 1 Talents. All practically pretty much only going first cards. You could argue Talents is going second. I mean, it's semi-worse than these 3 going first, and it's semi-better going second, but I would still count Talents as a going first card. And then 3 Impermanence. Also a questionable card going into next format, but it does play well into Talents, and it will be really good if people are going to be ending on Appaloosa. It kind of feels like a +3. It's not really, but getting rid of 3 counters off Eppo, it's definitely nice. And then we have, and it also avoids that problem I was mentioning with Ash Blossom. Then we have Link Rebo, IP Masquerena, SP, Little Knight, Hita. So far, these 4 I think are mandatory going into next format. Dark is kind of not mandatory, but you could consider it. Summoning Black Witch off it is very, very good. Heat Soul, also a mandatory card. This card is just the reason that you don't see a Barong in this deck. You can just do pretty much all the things Barong could do with this Salamangreat. And then we have Nightmare Phoenix. It is a fire, so it is kind of relevant. You can go into this right off your Promethean Princess. It definitely seems more impactful because we do see Dagda. So maybe for like a Dagda IP play, game 2, we're siding Scythe. So I could definitely see that more relevant with the Nightmare Phoenix. 2 Promethean Princess. This is kind of maybe a good consideration for a 2 of. You could just run 1 for sure. And I actually am not sure how much 2 is going to come up. In the OCG, a lot of them seem to be playing 2 Promethean Princess, but so far I've been getting away with 1. And then we see He Soul. This card is semi-mandatory. I would put it above Dark in terms of like value and how often you'll summon it. 1 Appaloosa. Definitely think Appaloosa is mandatory going into next format. 1 Obama Whale. Semi-mandatory card, would say, and then these 2 OTK potential cards with the Salamangreat, Raging Phoenix, something like that. It's like $30 now, I think. And then the World Sea Dragon, Zealantis, which is just so broken for killing your opponent. I mean, these cards are just insane. You thought Access Code Talker, Update Jammer was bad? Well, this is way easier. I mean, this card's ridiculous. And then for the side deck, we have 2 Nibiru on top of our already 1. So they do think Nibiru is a good hand trap going into next format. I wonder if there's any details about that. I don't see the word Nibiru. And then we have, actually, someone was just mentioning this to me, is, what's the card? Phantasme. Phantasme actually might be a good card worth testing. I won't give an opinion on it right now. I know I've said it's bad in the past, but I have not tested it going into this format, so it might actually be worth trying. 2 Lancia. This is going to become way more relevant when we get the announcement of when the new Ritual Beast cards are coming out and when the new Infernoid cards are coming out. That's why they're running it here. And then 3 Cosmic Cyclone. Definitely kind of a go-to card, especially considering it can get rid of Island, which then blows up your opponent's board. Then we have 2 Forbidden Droplet. Yeah, I don't know. Everything I said about Phantasme, I could say about Droplet. 3 Anti-Spell. Anti-Spell is just like the best going first, I think, right now. Even when you consider like wanted as a quick play, I still think this card is just so good. And then for a pure Snake Eye variant for our next deck, so 6-1 out of 204 participants. 3 Black Witch, mandatory. I think 2 Flame Bridge Dragon is actually mandatory. It comes up so much. Sometimes I think I want to run 3, especially in the mirror match with this deck. I mean, this card is just so uber broken. It's funny that it didn't seem like that before Populous, but now it's just like, wow, this card's ridiculous. 3 Ash, mandatory. Populous, mandatory. 2 Oak. I think 2 is pretty mandatory. 1 of the things called Birch. Yeah, I'm not calling you names. I think it is called Birch. He's mandatory as well. Just you need that extra like free special summon to give you a body. I definitely like it a lot. 1 Jet Synchron, also really powerful card in this deck, allowing you to get Formula, Boral, and Baron. One of the really cool things about Boral in this deck is you keep the counters even if you lose the link. So you could say get Linkuriboh, then you could send the Linkuriboh off like say Ash, and he'll still have that counter to negate, to be a good Omni Negate. Pretty crazy stuff that this deck can do. And then we have another Nibiru, 3 Ash, 3 Maxi, 2 Droll, 1 Effect Veiler. We've already talked about that. 3 Wanted. We see the 2 original Sinful Spoils instead of 1. Could bump it up to 3. Why not? We see the Quick Play spell. I think this card's actually very underrated if you haven't read it yet, but I haven't seen many people post Phantom Nightmare playing it, but this card does a lot. This card by itself can also like help you play around Nib. It gives you this like broken trap. This trap is so uber broken to me. I like this package a lot. The fact that, you know, Black Witch doesn't add, she sets, I think it's just like so strong. 1 of the field spell. The field spell is absolutely bonkers as well. Another card that got overlooked because just without Populous is not as good. 3 Bonfire, broken. And then we just see a lot of similarities between the last list with these cards for going first. And then we only have 1 Imperm, but we are playing the Designator, so our Designator's hitting all of these cards. The default Synchro lineup for sure. This is pretty much all you need. And then they are running their Recital with Zeus. Not the most mandatory, but I could definitely see it being good with all the level 1 spammage. Could catch your opponent off guard for sure. 1 Linkuriboh, 1 IP Masquerena, 1 SP, 1 Hita, 1 Promethean Princess. These 5 completely mandatory. Selene is maybe not. I don't know how he fits all this because he's running Selene, Apo, he's running Zeus in this too. And he's running the Raging Phoenix, the Zealantis, the Access Code Talker. I'm curious to what he's not playing that I am. But yeah, it's interesting. Because I'm just like, how do you fit all of these cards? He is running no Link 3s besides Selene. But overall, I think this is a solid extra deck. If you were thinking of making this deck to test on DB post Phantom Nightmare, I would definitely think this is a good starting point. I have been liking Super Poly a lot, especially for that Silent Forcer matchup. Super Poly is just game versus that deck. Maybe you don't need something that powerful for a deck that I just said would be like 5th in placement. But Super Poly all around is just like a good card versus everything else too. And then we have 1 Nibiru on the side, 1 Ghost Bell, 2 Soul Release. Definitely better than Diddy Crow going second. But, you know, if your Fire King opponent is kind of good at the game, Soul Release doesn't seem like it does a whole lot. I mean, it's like maybe a +1. I don't really like this card that much. Forbidden Droplets, I've already talked about that. Cosmic Cyclones, talked about that. Feather Duster. Feather Duster is definitely a broken card versus Rescue Ace because we will see all of the Rescue Ace players gravitate towards that Promethean Princess generic lineup with the Apo, basically the same thing as this and the one above, instead of playing the Terahertz package, which will negate that Harpy's Feather Duster. So I do think Feather Duster will get better going into next format. 1 Snake Eye spell that puts them in the spell and trap zone. This card can be really good in the mirror as well. 2 Evenly Match, 2 Summon Limit, and 1 Red Reboot. Must be nice to have that card. And then we have the Voiceless Voice. So this deck is actually really cool. I really wanted to play it going into next format, and then after just testing it a lot, I don't think it's that good. So we have 2 in names I am terrible with, and I know people actually get mad because everyone gets the names with this deck wrong. I'm just going to say them by effects. You know, we have the Omni Negate guy, we have the Inherent Summon Negate guy, plus the Trishula, Necros Trishula effect for the second effect, negate target. which doesn't really come up that much because your continuous spell is preventing your cards from being targeted anyway. So, yeah. And then we have the guy that specials the Dragon Ritual. Now in the TCG, we do play the Pendulum Dragon Ritual as well that negates a spell effect, but he's choosing not to play it. I think that card's actually really good. It also special summons an Odd Eyes card after you use that effect. This card's broken. The level 6 is foolish, and then add a ritual monster. So mandatory. I really like this guy too. I think he's pretty mandatory. 3 knocks. Like all of this stuff is pretty much all necessary. Diviner, when it gets impermed, it just hurts so bad because it just could have been so much more. And then we have 3 Nibiru. So they do think Nibiru is a good hand trap for sure. Only 2 Ash, 3 Maxi. So maybe we shouldn't be running Ash if he's only running 2 Ash in the format with Maxi. That kind of seems crazy. I don't know if Ash is expensive or something, but to me that's a red flag. 3 Maxi, 3 Effect Veiler, and he's running 3 Imperm as well. So lots of non-action. We have 3, 6, 3, 5, 8, 11, 14, 14 and 41. And then we have 3 of the continuous spell, of course, definitely need that. 2 of the ritual spell, that's pretty common, it's only 2. And then 2 pre-prep, sometimes I won't even be able to activate this card. 3 Extrav, I would probably play Prosperity over Extrav in the TCG. Definitely comes up where, especially like, you don't want to, I'd rather pick 1 out of the top 6 cards if I'm going to get drawn than draw 2 random cards and then just like still lose the draw. 1 of the trap, you only need 1, and I definitely think you have to run 1. This trap is broken. 3 Imperm. 2 Natis. This extra deck looks kind of weird, but it's based off the Extrav lineup, so if you're not playing Extrav, your extra deck's going to look a lot different than this, in my opinion. So we have 2 Natis, 2 Herald, 2 Chaos Angel, 2 Typhon, 1 Linkuriboh, 1 Anima. This card is broken. It's called Mondo. I always think of it. It sounds like Mundo, like from League of Legends, Dr. Mundo. But yeah, Mondo. He kind of like looks similar to, I guess. I don't know. But he's broken. You know, target 1 ritual in your grave, shuffle it, shuffle a card your opponent controls. Then if you send to the grave, special summon a ritual monster, broken effect. Then we're playing the Light Charmer and 2 SP Little Knights. Interesting choice with the Light Charmer. 1 Ash on the side, 1 Bell on the side, 3 Drool Knockbirds, 3 Cosmic Cyclones, Harpy's Feather Duster, 1 Heavy Storm, because that's legal now. They can play that with their Unchained Strat. Woo, woo, woo. I almost tried to do it with my voice, but my voice is still kind of raspy, and I can't go high pitch. Then we have 2 DDR, Broken Trap, 2 Anti-Spell, 1 Summon Limit. Weird trap lineup for sure, but I'm sure it makes sense with the side deck patterns. Then AG explained on his tweet of why he chose to keep Shaddoll Beast in the main deck and El Shaddoll Al Capone. That's what I like to call it. Okay. He went 6-1 second in a 3v3 tournament with 22 teams. Pretty good. This is a grass or greener deck, so it's kind of hard to compare to the TCG. We have 3 Maxi. So we got the Lebellion, 3 Sornier, 3 Albion, 3... yeah, the fact that Fallen of Albaz. I'm not going to say all these cards' names because I just blanked on Fallen of Albaz. This has already been a long video. So we are running the Gimmick Puppet Nightmare package with this as well. Anything else cool? I mean, Grass is Greener is like seems so fun. Unironically, I'm saying that. I mean, especially ironically saying it now with the Gimmick Puppet Nightmare. Like, that's got to be a blast. I bet this guy has a load of fun tilting his opponents. That's all there really is to say about this deck. I mean, it's Despia. I still do think in the TCG, Despia gets really good. I've had a lot of trouble when I play Rescue Ace versus Despia in that matchup and specifically. And then Super Poly is just so broken in this deck. It can run Super Poly, and I think Super Poly is going to be good going into next format. And then we have Flu. So Flu is actually one of the scariest decks to me going into next format because it is probably the best shifter deck. I do think Flu might be a little better than Kashtira as a shifter deck in the TCG. And I think shifter is just so strong going into next format, which is kind of contradictory to what we've seen in the past, where shifter hasn't been all that good. Like versus Rescue Ace, you don't really care for shifter. Versus Pearly, you don't really care for shifter. But now we have Fire Kings, shifters broken versus that deck. Snake Eyes, shifters broken versus that deck. You can't even use all your cards. Like, Shifter is definitely taking full force this next meta, and I wish it was banned. So we have 2 M-Pen, 1 Mega Ryza, 1 Omni Negate, 3 Robina, 3 Eagland, 1 DD Crow guy, 1 Add Banish guy, 2 Shifter, 2 Ash. Again, we see the 2 Ash Blossom. Less interesting with this one because they don't even need to Ash Blossom XC in this deck. That's not even relevant. So they're just, like, when you're playing Flu, you're, like, purely playing Flu. You're purely playing Ash as a hand trap for its design purpose, not just an anti-Maxi card. So it's interesting. 3 Maxi, 3 Quick Play, 3 Field Spell. They got 3 Field Spell, you know? 3 D Fisher, 3 Pot of Duality, 3 Extrav. Well, I actually forgot they had 3 Pot of Duality still. And Shifter deck's out on top of it over there, for real. 1 Prosperity, 1 Terraforming, 1 Trap, and 3 Imperm. Extra deck, practically irrelevant, would be a waste of time. 1 more Mega Monarch, so I'm surprised I've rarely seen Mega Monarch, but I played this deck a lot on Master Duel. Don't sue me, it was during the first run. 2 Droll Mockbirds, 3 Cosmic, 2 Lightning Storm, 1 Harpy's Feather Duster, 1 Thrust. I do not like Thrust going into the next format. Definitely just, even in Master Duel, I don't like Thrust. 3 of the Floodgate Trap, sweet, 2 evenly matched, and that is all. And then for the conclusion, it says the Fire King onslaught continues as it takes another dominating lead with 3 times as many tops as the Snake Guy in the 2nd spot. And then you can also support them on Patreon. Yeah, I love this website. I hope you guys enjoyed the quick rundown of the OCG meta, and peace.